everyone, this is Julie Murphy, and I would like to show you today's video is a little different than normal. Some of you have asked me for help because you've been working on the OESD, the Santa tile scene, which happens to be a wonderful embroidery design that you can buy online from OESD, and it uses the isocord threads in all gray. But some of you have run into an issue in trying to trim up your blocks and get them to match up just right. So let me just show you what I have done, because I actually ran into a little problem with it myself. The blocks stitch out really easily. I actually made notes that helped me to know what I was doing, even though the notes that come with the set are very clear. These were specific notes for me as I was working on it. So let me show you a couple of things that I found helpful. They suggested that you use, this stack here is one stack of light ultra clean and tear, 2 pieces of heavy tear away. So each of the pieces that I did, I layered them and I stacked the 3 pieces, put my piece of material on top, and then I labeled them so I would know exactly which tile I was working on at any given point. And then I pressed them with an iron so that I could get them nice and flat and worked from there. This one I've already trimmed down a little bit just so you can see my next process. One of the things that they have you do in the design is there's a final seam that you stitch. Sometimes I used a white thread, sometimes I used a black thread, sometimes it just didn't want to show up at all. And let me show you what happened here. You can see I used a white thread here, but for whatever reason, it's just not showing up in the design. So the big thing in putting this tile scene together is you've got to be precise as you go to assemble. So one of the things I did is I put on another piece of stabilizer and stitched just the seam. And I did that twice on 2 separate pieces of stabilizer. What that allowed me to do is, from the seam, they were very clear that you need to allow for a 1/2 inch on each side. Well, if you go to put it on here, each of the tile seams is slightly bigger than where you're going to actually cut it out. So what I did is made a second one of these and cut out a piece of paper that is exactly the dimension of the inside of it. I then went into my seam line and matched up the piece of paper so I knew exactly how to go about trimming. So what the paper represents is the inside portion of the tile scene that you're going to need to match up. Then the outer portion is excess design that you can then use to help you trim up the tile. This piece of stabilizer is going to help me so that I know exactly what I'm cutting as I'm going to square up this block. So I match this up. Now I have a perfectly squared tile scene that I then remove my outer portion that has the 1/2 inch all the way around. I remove my piece of paper, and when I turn my tile scene over, it's exactly the dimensions it needs to be in order to match it up to the prior block. I'm going to show you this one as well as I cut it. There's one other thing I forgot to mention to you that I do as I'm doing this. Once I have this all matched up, I actually take a colored pencil and I just go right along that seam that was already stitched. And it's not technically a seam, it's a mark that helps you when you go to stitch these blocks together. Now, on the black threads, obviously you're not going to be able to see it very well. You can take a gray pencil, you can take a white, whatever helps you see. I actually like my little chalk marker. And these are very, very important in order to be able to match up your tiles. So once you're done, you take that away, and you can see this faint line as you go along here that actually helps you to see where your mark is going to be. Let me show you on this one. Let me go back. I actually did not mark this one. And what I've done is I've put some double-sided tape both on the bottom and on the top. That helps me to match it up. So then I peel that away, and you can see now I have a nice chalk line going around. What this does is when I go to stitch these two blocks together, one, they should be exactly the same size, and two, what I'll do is run my actual joining line right along, just one stitch inside of these lines. And that really helps you to get accurate blocks so you can piece them together. So let me go ahead and trim this one up, and I'll be right back with you. So I now have two perfectly squared up tile seams, and when I go to join them together, the other thing that you need to do is make sure that you've got them all going the right direction. So you can see here, this repeats. You can actually see the seam here. So then you turn them over. Let me actually show you how far along on this I have actually gotten. So here is what I've done so far of this tile seam. And you can see how nicely all these blocks match up using this technique. This is just something that I've used to make it easier for me. It is very difficult to press these on the back. And once I get ready to do the next one, I will show you exactly how I did that. And let me show you over at the machine exactly how I join them. Now that we're at the machine, the only two things I do on the screen, I make sure I'm on the middle stitch for just a straight stitch. And the other thing I have found helpful is to come down here and turn the laser guidance light on. And all that does is it gives us a nice, let me show you over at the stitching area. And you can see that laser light. Let me turn it off so you can see it joining up. There you go. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check, make sure one more time I'm stitching the correct end. So here I've got my V-foot on, and I've got the little V-foot sheet on here, and I've got it so that I know that this 1/2 inch mark is exactly what I need to do. I'm actually not going to stitch using the V-foot setting in our machine. I'm just using this as a guide. I'm going to line it up so that that laser light is just one step inside of the stitching, the place that I marked with the red pencil. I'm also going to look right here at the 1/2 inch mark. I'm going to raise my presser foot. And this is the part you want to get it so it's just right before you start stitching. And once I have it all set and it's at the 1/2 inch mark and I know I've got everything lined up, I'll go ahead and do a straight stitch through. You want to always take this part slow because this is really thick where you're trying to go over everything. As you get to the seam, slow down and just make sure everything's exactly where you want it. And when I get to the seam, I do go back over it to help reinforce it. be afraid to adjust as you go along. Always keep an eye on that 1/2 inch seam. Done, you can check and make sure all your seams are aligned properly and they look like they are, and you're ready to start the next portion. Thanks for watching.